So today with us, it's the end of the first day. We have an incredible speaker that I am so happy to host today. So Yonah, I know you're already on the call, and I'm just really grateful that you have made the time and you're joining us today live. So everyone, meet Yonah Welker, who will introduce himself and tell you all about his incredible journey, the learnings, the takeaways, and hopefully leave you with a few things to think about. I kind of already know what this talk will be about, and I'm absolutely looking forward to hearing it. Yonah, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Elena. And before I introduce myself, I would love to say that it's a truly pleasure to be here with you today. I consider hackathons just an amazing way to turn human meetings and collaborative work into innovation and real-world solutions. And I had an opportunity to see it in different parts of the world. In Africa, when we pick data scientists or artificial intelligence or engineers to tackle social challenges, or where I've been involved in programs between Palestine or Israel, and we use hackathons and young people, collaborative work of young people to create solutions, technology apps and platforms to tackle challenges in healthcare, medicine, education, and sometimes even climate change. And now I would love to ask you several questions. Once again, before I introduce myself, do you know that Einstein was dyslexic and had an estimate IQ around 160? So he was dyslexic. He was not able to read correctly, but he had an IQ around 160. Do you know that individuals with autism spectrum have a superb problem solving and data related skills, which is why we're actively hired by companies by Google, Amazon, and many other unicorns? Do you know that many startups failed under COVID-19 because we lack women and minority in their teams? And now I would love to introduce myself. My name is Yonah Welker, and since 2005, I've been exploring things that connect technology and society. My journey was truly comprehensive. Some people say that I had several lives because at some point I've created technology startups and companies. I've been involved in building innovation labs. I've been involved in working in art and creative projects like MySpace music and many artistic projects. And at some point, I've been involved in projects related to ethics, inclusion, and decentralization. So what is about my journey now? My journey is about startups, research in deep technology in such areas like healthcare, education, well-being, and human ability. And typically when people say, could I put all of my work in one sentence? What is my mission about? What my main goal? What I would love to achieve? Playing around different portfolios of startups, research, exploration, and other stuff. I say, my mission is very simple. I would love to reimagine how we see human ability, how we see diversity. Because I believe the future of technology is non-binary. I believe that there is no the same type of brain, there is no the same type of mental or psychological pattern or talent. So that's why there is no such thing or right or wrong, smart or not smart, talented or not talented. Everything is about spectrum of different shades and colors. So my mission is to reimagine how we see classes, workplaces, and sometimes even the whole cities in ecosystems. So my main work is about what I call algorithmic diversity or non-binary vision of technology, when we are able to align particular algorithms with ability of a particular person, individual, or talent. And for sure, the whole work, it's not kind of a occasional stuff I'm so passionate about that you typically explore in Forbes or Inc. magazine. Oh, so inspiring story. No, it's actually a part of my real life. I was born with a pretty severe damage of brain and related issues related to endocrine and neural system. And at some point, I was literally pushed away from society, from humanity. I was forced to abandon traditional education to learn on my own, to create my own world, how I able to see it, how I'm able to see communication with people, learning, civic access, and even creativity. So I create most of my first startups in my room. And basically, even today, working around the world in places like Israel or Palestine or South Africa or Chile or North America, in places like MIT or Harvard, I act from my small room. It's the way how I prefer to work, connecting the dots just from one dot at the same time. I know what everyone who's going today to this hackathon full of ideas, full of passion. I still remember when I launched my first startup, I was around 14 years old. I was inspired by hardware market. I was inspired by corporation like NVIDIA. I still remember how I wrote an article about the story of NVIDIA, about the story of MV1 chip and the journey from the small startups, tiny startups, to the huge corporation, how we evolve corporate culture, product, team, and how we gone global. And knowing which you're very busy and you would love to create stuff as much as possible and as soon as possible, I would love to save you time. And that's why today I just share tips and lessons on diversity I've learned over my journey that I try to implement in almost every team, every type of product, no matter whether we're talking about application, platform, robot, or something more comprehensive or something in between. So I share 5 ideas I consider very important, not only in terms of design thinking, but also your ethical and philosophical foundation you have behind any type of a inventor or creative work. So what kind of a tips or ideas I try to follow and I've learned in my journey, in my diversity and ability journey? First thing is a diversity of team. Can you create quality baby products if there are no women in technology? But at the same time, until today, only 2% of venture capital and funding for startup went to women. And the same situation was in UK, US, in almost every developed country. Do you know that over COVID-19, countries which were managed by women perform much better fighting COVID-19 in terms of spreading information, learning, informing society, people, citizens. And not only due to the fact that women were more educated or knowledge, but due to the fact that they had a natural ability and empathy to tackle these problems. So diversity in technology team or creative team, it's not a question of fairness or equal numbers. Nope, it's not about statistic at all. It's the way to connect people with specific experiences and problems which have never been covered before. Nobody cared about it before, like awareness, like neurodiversity, like a particular type of disability or mental health problems like schizophrenia or bipolar disorder or major depressive disorder. Another lessons of diversity I have learned over my journey is an algorithmic diversity. Have you ever tried to wear clothes of another person with a completely different body? Not really comfortable, yes? But with how we design products until now, with how we design artificial intelligence and facial recognition, And it's not a surprise with in 30% of cases, facial recognition doesn't work correctly for women, people of color, and so on. Microsoft and Google were one of the first who started to solve this problem. We came up with what we know is inclusive design, is a concept, their design thinking, one design is aligned with one group or individual. But now, as a technologist, as an inventors, we're able to go further. We're able to align particular type of platforms or technology niches with a particular type of social groups. For instance, now we have such thing as neurodiverse platforms where we're able to use data platforms to find a job for people with autism in data science or artificial intelligence fields. For instance, such type of companies like Divergence or Ultranodes is companies successfully help autistic people to find a job in technology field because it's a type of a superpower in type of their ability we're able to deliver. Or another case is a social robotics would help people with ADHD or another attention deficit problem to learn in their own pace, or a collaborative or learning on demand where you're able to build your own class, where you pick teachers or professors who are not just relevant to you based on topics or study, but also we weigh how a person teach in terms of a pace or particular parameters which aligned with your type of ability. Another thing of diversity I have learned, unfortunately, similar to disabled people, similar to neurodiverse individuals, inclusive technology was underrepresented until now, because we whole way how inclusive technology built, how it's funded, it doesn't fit with traditional venture capital or business. What's what we call Y Combinator metric. But this problem can be solved by inventors, by you guys who now go to this hackathon to build different things in maybe inclusive or mental health ones. Which problem can be solved through double market principle when we pick highly niche solution in assistive technology field and use it also for a bigger mainstream market for healthy ones. For instance, we have such things as a soft robotics. Soft robotics is a type of technology which help to build rehabilitation costumes or suits. For instance, for people with neuromuscular disorder like multiple sclerosis. But at the same time, such type of technology or solution can be used for healthy ones in such industries like sport, travel, and so on. Or another case, hearing or visual impairment solution, which can be used both for people with a visual or hearing impairment, but also as an augmentation one for healthy ones. And finally, smart sticks with the artificial intelligence would help people with cognitive impairment or a Parkinson disease also can be used as a geolocation tool for healthy ones. And there are many other examples. Another lessons I've learned is the diversity of data and collaborative data approach. Parkinson's disease, mental health, or neuromuscular disorder are extremely complicated challenges to solve, which is why we always need an extensive amount of validated data, sources, and cases to tackle it. Since 2017-18, we had a rise of data science and artificial intelligence platforms, crowdsourcing data in talent to tackle global challenges. There are amazing examples like Omdina or Zindi Africa, which use data science to solve global challenges. But now we're able to use diversity of data and collaborative data in order to create open source healthcare and patient data. Decentralized research platforms in such areas as inclusive design, individual learning, brain diversity, and mental health. And finally, the last thing, but I would say one of the most important, what I would love you keep not only in your head, but also in your heart is a diversity, empathy, and ethics of things you create. Many people know about startup called Firanas. If you don't know, feel free to go and Google it, Firanas. It was a company which worked on the blood tester. And unfortunately, it was just a promise. It never worked correctly. So it was a more like a venture bubble. But this lesson is not about bubbles. It's about ethics. Do you know that many people never actually treat this situation seriously? They never perceive it as a tragedy because thousands of people can get a harm from this situation from not correct blood tests. At some point, I had an opportunity to have a talk with person who lead acceleration program in justice and legal technology. I asked a director of this program, what's your opinion about Firanas and how you see consequences of such type of ventures in our industry? And this person said, oh, it was a very good book. And she meant not the case. She meant the book which was created based on this situation. And this how we whole industry work. Now people think about technology not something we solve social challenges or problems, but more kind of a Hollywood story with some kind of a heroes, some kind of a tragedy, but it's more kind of storytelling. But people don't understand what the scope of actual harm we're able to do with technology as well. At some point, when you go and dive in such thing as a design thinking, you learn about designing with empathy, in creation with empathy. It's a concept when every time you build something, you keep in mind your customer, their needs, the ideas, the way how we see the world and how we live, how we feel, and so on. So the last thing I would love to say, but no matter what you will plan to create, is about robots, is about applications, is about something more comprehensive, please keep your customer, patients, students, and people in your heart and your brain. Thank you so much and good luck during this amazing event. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Yonah. That was really, really incredible. So I have noted down all 5 things, and I'm going to start with the very last one. So it's designing with empathy. So it is data diversity, it is inclusive technology, it's algorithmic diversity, and it's team diversity. And we have actually touched upon all of this, or some of it definitely today throughout the day, and we will definitely be covering more of this throughout the entire week. Whilst Michaela is looking at the questions, I am going to be asking you perhaps some of the questions just to kick things off, if you don't mind, Yonah. Yonah, tell me a little bit about your journey and how did you get inspired into technology? Was there some aha moment in your childhood or who was that role model or that inspirational person that really led you towards now?
Yes, it's a very good question. First of all, I've started to create pretty early. I started to create writing books. I create my first book when I was 4. I wasn't able to write ideally, but I'm already trying to create some kind of a product with some kind of design and pictures. It was a very childish thing, but I had some passion to creativity with the early childhood, but actual my actual movement into technology happened when I became a technology journalist. I was 13 years old. I've started to blog and write about technology. And basically, I've mentioned it, one of the first company where I covered, it was a biography of company NVIDIA and the history of this company. And later, I became much more interconnected person. I'm become interested about music, art, how we can use technology in order to create experiences. And at this point, many people from performance art, like Marina Abramovich or some artists who combine biology and some kind of a performance art, were very inspiring. So it's more kind of a creators who work beyond most of ideas I had.
That's incredible, and really thank you for sharing your story. It is very relevant to this day and age, and we do really advocate for all sorts of diversity, including diversity of abilities. This is something that is very important to me, and we do have young people as part of the hackathon who are very neurally diverse, and all young people of all abilities are really welcome to all of our hackathons. And I'm really proud to say that we make an effort and reach out to young people of all abilities specifically. And so, Yonah, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now? What would be your ultimate, dream? What do you seek to achieve? What would be that success story you see yourself creating for yourself in 5 years?
Yes. First of all, I don't love the word success. I believe everything is a process, and specifically, I consider myself more like a philosopher and artist. So the process itself is a process of learning, in process of change. It's like something which never stops. In terms of my work, currently, on one hand, I collect a portfolio of startups, and there are three directions. One focused on well-being, another on diversity, and the third one on sustainable materials. So my goal is to grow with direction and inspire more technologists. Another direction is a foundation focused on research in diversity and ability, specifically on intersection of artificial intelligence, computer science, and human ability. So my goal is to explore more and more young people working in this direction. At the same time, I would love to build more creative projects who are able to demonstrate and empower ability. Currently, for instance, we're working on idea of a museum of diversity and ability to collect interesting ideas and prototypes of robotics, bionic, VR, AR technology in many relevant creative products. So it's a kind of my mission. There are many, many directions I would love to bring in 5 years perspective. And basically, I have a plan.
Brilliant. And so, Yonah, another question that I have, and this question is coming from the young people themselves. How are ethics related to social media chats and social media pages, for instance, Instagram or Facebook? So we've had somebody before you who came and shared their concerns about social media and the impact of social media on mental health, which is on the increase right now. So young people want to know on the ethical considerations around that.
Yes, there are different levels how we can think about this problem. On one hand is the responsibility of developers, is the people who behind such platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and the way how we work with data of users, how they collect, how they keep it. So it's about data privacy and security. And in the European Union should be aligned with the GDPR, and any kind of a technology company is responsible in order to be aligned with such policy. At the same time, there are more new policies related to the content itself, like political propaganda, any kind of adult content. So definitely the companies, developers, inventors who created or who involved in this work should be responsible for that. And the same about users, people who create this content or share it, they are responsible, should be responsible for the action. And now where there is a term which is called digital citizen. It means since we're internet on the web, so we're like a person on the street. We're full of rights, but we're full of responsible. And our name, our nickname is like a passport. And so we're responsible for everything we share, we post, we comment, and this tendency just continue to grow over time, both in terms of regulation, new technology, filters, using AI, NLP, and so on.
Great. And we're being asked to give some examples on how to incorporate empathy into the stage, into the product development when you're just creating, your product. So some teenagers at the moment are creating their problem statements, and they're looking into incorporating empathy and looking into some of the ethics right now in the very early stages of product development. What advice would you offer to them, Yonah?
Yes. First of all, I would love to mention that I'm entrepreneur in residence in 500 startups, and I have opportunity to work with many early stage startups in different countries, in US and Korea or around the world. And the most popular mistake or problem they typically have is a user research. And basically, we wait to use their empathy in order to get the insights from people how we typically use such type of products, how we would love to create it, how it's aligned with the social groups, and so on. In the practice, it means using at least 5 different type of user research, including survey, live chats, virtual chats, demonstration. When, for instance, we're involved in hardware, we created Zoom conferences, demonstrating product, talking to people, sometimes in small groups, like sometimes a one-on-one. There are different formats. By the way, I'm able to share even examples maybe after this talk through organizers. So basically it's about detailed user research in combination working with individuals, small groups, bigger groups, and the whole social group through some kind of a campaign.
Great. And last but not least, the question I would love to ask you is, what is it that you are excited about when it comes to artificial intelligence? Is there a particular industry where you see AI is going to make the most impact? And the second part to that question is there anything you are concerned about and maybe fearful of when it comes to technologies like AI?
Yes, it's a great question. I believe there are 2 main areas where AI is able to build the biggest impact is a learning and education. And the second thing is a well-being. In terms of healthcare, is definitely drug research. As a person who are patient at the same time, I'm still have no cure for my disease. So for instance, I use drugs from 16s or 90s. So the old drugs, we have no new ones. So basically artificial intelligence in theory is able to skyrocket this process. And I would say it has a potentially huge impact. And another one is education using AI in order to automate and make the process of selection of talent more natural, more focused on particular talents. But at the same time, as you mentioned, I have many fears because you're with this same type of technology, if it's not created correctly, you can create the filter bubble in education when criteria is not correct. And you will filter particular type of people. And it's a huge problem. And we still have no solution. We have no criteria of intelligence. We have no criteria of talent. So how exactly we plan to use it? Have no idea. It's a huge question for many people, including educators, neuroscientists, biologists, policymakers, researchers, and families and parents for sure. And the same in medicine.
Brilliant. That was really, really insightful, Yonah. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I know you are also one of our mentors.
Yes.
And so I believe it's the lucky team 8 who have you as their mentor. So team, make the most of Yonah, his brains, his presence, because there is so much he can add to your team. And everyone else, Yonah is in Discord. So if you would like to ask him some other questions, please do ask him in Discord as well. So on this note, Yonah, thank you very much once again
for joining us. 8 is limitless.
Oh, yes, it is indeed, Yonah. I wondered. Yes, of course it is. And it's infinite, of course, because we are here to unleash your infinite potential. So there you go. I'm going to close your stream on a very high note, because that is what we are planning to do over the next 6-7 days.